Welcome to the Apotheosis of You, the show that empowers entrepreneurs by bridging the gap between knowledge and action.
We're your hosts, Sal and Saida, and on today's episode, we're going to review step 3 in Tai Lopez's 67 steps.
Tai Lopez has been a mentor of ours. He has amassed a huge library of books, and we are collectors of knowledge, and he himself compiled all the knowledge that he has gained through those books and distilled it into 67 steps, which he calls the framework, the mental framework for the good life. And so we are on step number 3, and this is called Sam Walton's Night in a Brazilian Jail.
That's going to be a funny one.
Yeah, that is very interesting and hilarious. Stealing from McDonald's and Michael Jordan's humility. So in this one, he talks about a new concept of humility.
Yeah.
What we're used to is humbleness in the sense of having some success and not letting that blow your head up to the sky where you think you're above everyone else. That's the idea of being humble that we're used to. But he talks about humbleness in a completely different way, which is humble enough to know that you don't know everything. So if there's someone else that knows more, to go to them and say, hey, I'm actually not as intelligent as you are in that area. Would you teach me? Would you guide me? Would you be my mentor? Or any sort of guidance that you can provide. Whereas someone with an inflated ego might not do that. They may be outwardly humble, but not inwardly, meaning that I would like to grow. I need to bow down to people with higher understanding, higher knowledge, and so that I can receive from them. Isn't that a cool concept?
Yeah, it is.
So he then talks that be humble enough to realize that you do not know everything and you must seek out those who do. For example, if you're in a meeting and you see that in the meeting that there's someone that has a much higher level of understanding on this subject, it can be intimidating to reveal the fact that you do not know these things.
Yeah.
And to ask that person for guidance and that knowledge, that will help you to grow and expand, versus I don't want to let that person know that I'm not aware of these things, that I'm ignorant of these things, you'll look down upon me. That is protecting the ego and doing yourself harm, versus being humble enough to admit that you have some growing to do and expanding that way. Who's someone you know that has done that to an excellent level?
Yeah, the billionaire Sam Walton. So the reason why
For those that don't know what Sam Walton did.
Oh, Sam Walton, he is the owner of Walmart.
The one that created Walmart. He's no longer with us, but he's the one that founded. No, he's the one that discount supermarkets were in existence, but he's the one that really took it to the next level and made it a successful model. Yeah.
Big thing, yeah. Right now, actually, I'm reading his book and I'm very amazed by him.
For those that are interested in that book, what is the name of the book?
The name of the book is Made in America. It's very interesting. You guys would like it, and there's a lot of value to it. Like the mistakes he talks about, it could be even up to date.
Really?
Like for us to learn from. Exactly.
That's timeless lessons in there. So we'll also be doing a deep dive and breakdown of that. I think you're still in the midst of that. You haven't actually.
Yeah, no, I haven't finished it. It's still there in my library. I'm still reading it. So it is a very interesting book. You guys should definitely look into that. But the reason why we're talking about his humbleness or his humility, inner humility, is because there were two people that wanted to meet Sam Walton. They flew from Brazil, and a guy in a pickup truck comes to meet them, and they're like, oh, who's this guy? Can you take us to Sam Walton? And he's like, I am Sam Walton. He had a couple of dogs, I think, in his trunk, right?
The cool thing about Sam Walton is he had inner and outer humility. He was a billionaire, but he's like Warren Buffett. He lived, very...
Yeah, like even in his book, he says that he didn't need the luxury. He didn't need a nice car. He didn't need a private jet, even though he could afford. He didn't need a private jet. He didn't need an island. He didn't want one. Can you imagine? Like, he's a billionaire and he didn't spend his money on those types of things.
He was just driven by something different to build something great. We all have something we're driven by.
So these two people, they sit in his truck and he takes them home.
Mm-hmm.
And then his wife prepares dinner and they all sit together. So they start asking questions, but then he doesn't even answer, and he starts asking them questions. He was always hungry to learn new things. So he thought that he could learn from these two people that he didn't even know. So he was just, in the end of the dinner,
Mm-hmm.
they were like, we didn't even ask, you didn't even answer one of our questions, and you were just asking us questions. Why is that?
The interesting part, a little background of who these two people are, is they were in Brazil wanting to open up their own chain of discount stores. So they send letters to so many CEOs. Sam Walton was the only one to respond back, like, hey, I'll take you up on your offer, I'll sit down with you guys and answer your questions.
Right.
When they actually sat down, Sam Walton...
he was the one to ask all the questions, and he was trying to learn from them. He was seeking gems from them, you know?
Speaking of gems, there's another wonderful concept that Tai touches upon in this, which is, we're familiar with the concept of Robin Hood, who would take the riches of the wealthy and redistribute them amongst the poor, like a socialist.
Yeah.
But he's saying we can do this in a more ethical way by taking the gold and the gems of the mental side of things, the fact that the wealthy or anyone you meet has some gems or have some wealth of gold, mental gold, to offer you. It may be lessons, it may be guidance. So be humble enough to know that everyone you meet has some knowledge to part on you. Now, that doesn't mean that it's always going to be knowledge that you should act upon, meaning that you should do that, because they can give you knowledge of, they'll always give you one of these two knowledges, either what to do in life or what not to do in life. So you can steer clear of these things by avoiding their mistakes, or you can emulate what the successful have done. So keep that humility. So that was, and then what happened with Sam actually
in Brazil? So what happened to Sam was that one day his wife gets a phone call from Brazil, and they say Sam Walton is in jail.
No. Well, he went to Brazil to meet those guys. Remember?
Right.
So he went to, like, those guys had begun the process, and he went there to visit them, and they when he was there, being hosted by a family there, like the people that had come to visit him here.
Right. Those were the two people that came to their dinner. Those were the ones to call the wife and say, hey, Sam Walton is in jail and we don't know why.
Yeah.
So she flies out there, and they also come to jail to see why did they
arrest a billionaire.
arrest
he was
billionaire. Already a billionaire.
So.
And they're like, why did you arrest a billionaire? Well, this guy, he was just at nighttime, he was in a store measuring
on his hands and knees.
On his hands and knees.
The aisles, the space between the aisles, the different measurements of how the store was laid out.
Exactly.
And they didn't know why he was there.
Even though he already had many stores that are open and that are bringing him a lot of money, he was still, he was a billionaire already, but he still, like, had his humility to go and learn something new.
So what he was doing while he was snooping around on the floors of discount stores in Brazil, measuring the distance between the aisles and other areas to see if they had figured out something that he was unaware of.
Right.
That blew my mind. Here you have a billionaire on his hands and knees in public, doing something that looks ridiculous.
Yeah, they thought that he was crazy. Yeah. That's why they took him to jail.
No shame. It's very interesting about Sam. He was known to spend more time in his competitor's store
than his own.
Isn't that incredible? Like, the amount of humility you have to put aside your ego and your pride, to say that there might be things that they know, and I'm gonna be humble enough to figure it out. So much respect to him. It really opened my eyes and my humility to what sort of man he was.
Yeah.
And I have nothing but respect for that guy. So now there's another type. Well, there's the same type of humility that can be represented a different type of way because it's inner humility. So, for example, someone like Michael Jordan. Outwardly, you could say that he was very audacious, very bold. He would make these claims like he's the greatest player ever, just as maybe Mike Tyson, other prominent figures in different sports would have this bravado about them that they are the greatest. And that doesn't seem like humility. But in regards to what Tai is talking about, they can still be very humble. Because what happens behind the show, behind the stage and the court, behind the smack talk and the talk to the public and the press, is when Michael Jordan is in front of his coaches, whatever his coaches advise him, he follows religiously. Yeah. All of his coaches have said that they have never seen someone listen and execute like Michael Jordan. Wow. So he was humble enough to say that these individuals, my coaches, are superior than I am. They can see things that I cannot. He still said that he's the greatest, but he was humble enough to bow down to people that had greater experience and take from their knowledge and execute on that. So that is different compared to what we think of as humility. And so we have to rephrase our internal drive about how we approach things. How far do we go to ask the questions that we do not know? Can you stand up or even raise your hand in a meeting or pause someone when there's a word or phrase or a term?
Understand.
Exactly. It takes courage to do that. It takes a sense of I'm going to put aside my ego.
Yeah.
And
not only ego, like sometimes, for example, why I wouldn't ask a question, it would be because I would be afraid that somebody would think I'm stupid.
Yeah, that's humility.
That is, well, perhaps.
According to what Tai is talking about, that is the kind of humility that people don't embody. They don't practice that type of humility. Is to say, I'm humble enough to educate myself so I don't have to ask this question any other time, or the next time this word or this phrase or this term is used, I know what they're talking about. Yeah. And so we have to really take that into mind. And for example, in my life, I realized that I actually do exemplify a bit of this. I mean, not to the degree that I should, but when it comes to things that I don't know, when it comes to seeking people's advice, I am relentless in doing that. Because think about it, I went from a high school with not having any really strong financial backings to go to a private university. And through my tenacity, through my relentlessness, through my drive and humility of constantly asking every person I could, every guidance counselor, every advisor, every college administrator, how I could possibly get a full tuition scholarship. And through working on it every single day and bowing down to the fact that I need the knowledge of everyone that I am surrounded by, I was able to get a full tuition scholarship. And so like that sort of humility, as opposed to not seeking that knowledge or not going after it that relentlessly, I would have missed out on what was a full tuition scholarship. So that puts the perspectives of humility. One, you have the outer humility, which, by the way, now to me it's good to have, but I see this inner humility as much more conducive to your success. Because there's that other weakness of you having some success and just being really to yourself, really not promoting yourself, not putting yourself out like being a saint in terms of your humility, your outer humility. That's detrimental. That's not something to be proud of. That's going to hold you back. As opposed to, there's also the other extreme of being too much in the like Michael Jordan and like constantly putting people down and letting them know that you are the greatest. So that middle ground of having the outer humility and the inner humility of being humble on the outside, respecting others, as well as seeking knowledge from others, that blend is best person that exemplifies that is Sam Walton. And I think whenever I think of the word humility, that person will come to mind.
Sam Walton.
Now, there was the part about stealing from McDonald's, and that is about Ray Kroc. Ray Kroc is a very, very interesting individual because he is what made McDonald's what they are today.
Yeah.
It wasn't the McDonald's brother who created McDonald's, because they just had this one store, and Ray Kroc was the one that engineered the franchise model and really expanded this into, I don't know how many locations they have, in the thousands international.
Well, if not more.
Yeah, absolutely. So it might be like 30, 40,000. So it's crazy. But here is where the humility part comes in. So Ray Kroc was a salesman for paper cups, for milkshake machine makers, and he did that for about 20, 30 years. And when he was 52, he met the McDonald's brothers, and he was selling them paper cups and milkshake makers. And he saw that these brothers were very good at selling, I think it was 18 cents hamburgers and fries, and there was like long lines. And what he did was instead of reinventing that, instead of saying, okay, I see how they're working this, because he worked very closely with them in terms of selling them supplies, he would see the internal workings. So he was like, he could either replicate the model himself with taking on the responsibilities and variables that he might not know. So he knew that there could be things that he doesn't know that the McDonald's brothers might have had. Also, he said, even if he could take and replicate everything, he still couldn't take the name. So he was humble enough to realize that, and he created a partnership with them, saying, you guys will be, the owners, just give me the rights to the licensing, and I will go build out other stores. And he became the greatest franchisor the world has known, and then created a model that now exists throughout the world. So let's play the humility test. There is a test that Tai put together that tests your humility. And this is not, again, just your outer humility, the inner humility, the one that is actually going to lead to your success. Okay? 4 questions. Each one is rated on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 being that you exemplify it very well. Then we're going to take the average of those numbers and see what your average inner humility score is. So this kind of embodies it in a way in terms of action, not just words. Number 1 is, how many self-development books have you read?
Okay, so...
First of all, do you read them?
Yeah, of
okay,
course
so
I do.
That's one thing to begin with, because many people do not.
Okay.
So congrats on that to begin with. And now it's a matter of, at what rate.
Of course I lost count. I don't know how many books I
Would you
read,
say
but in the past couple of months it was a handful.
That's a good representation.
Yeah.
It's which is incredible, by the way, because the average CEO, I think, which is an oxymoron, average CEO, but I think they read a book a week or something like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can try to actually name them. Well, some of them at least.
Name the authors, because that might be easier.
So it was Charisma Myth by Olivia Fox.
Olivia Fox, yeah.
Crush It by Gary Vee.
Mm-hmm.
Thank You Economy by Gary Vee.
Yep.
Richard Branson's
The Virgin Way.
The Virgin Way.
Mm-hmm.
It was
10X.
Oh, 10X I read.
Grant Cardone.
Yeah, Grant Cardone's, and so some of the books we read together, so that's why he knows what books.
Yeah,
I
so you're
have
currently
read.
on The American Way.
American Way I'm reading right
Sam
now,
Walton.
but I'm not gonna count that. But what is done?
There was others.
Lost Art of Listening.
Oh yeah, that's
That one is a very good book.
Yeah,
I
we'll
recommend.
do a breakdown of that.
We're gonna talk about that. That's already 7.
So it's Good rate. So we'll 7. So we'll give you a score of 7.
No, I can.
Okay, it'll be 10. It'll be 10. No,
yeah, it's even more than 10. I guess.
You're doing good. You're doing good. Stop bragging.
Stop bragging.
How good?
Talking.
How good? Oh yeah, that's true. But I'm not bragging. Humility. How good have you been in tracking down mentors to help you, getting on the plane? You know, if or traveling to go see your mentors.
Well, I've traveled to go see Grant Cardone.
Mm-hmm.
Andy Frisella was there, and well, you guys know, you saw our episode about 10x event.
Oh yeah, that's true.
That was last month.
Mm-hmm.
For the past half a year, I would say we've been to 2 conferences already.
Exactly. Which another one is already booked.
Mentors. Yeah, and another one is already booked. Yeah, in May we're gonna attend another conference.
So.
So.
I would say a score of 8 on that.
Why are you rating lower than it should be?
No, because it's 2 conferences.
Okay, 2 conferences in less than half a year.
How about in a year?
Well, in a year. Okay.
It's still 2, right?
It's still 2.
Oh, that's why I say.
But this is the 3rd that I'm going to.
Okay, well.
So in a year.
What do you think is fair?
I think 10 is fair.
Oh wow. Okay.
Okay.
This is the outer humility we're talking about.
Okay.
The 3rd one is spending time learning and copying from other people in your industry, like Sam Watton's. Sam spent time in other people's store.
Mm-hmm.
How much are we learning from other people in our industry, other people that are succeeding in our industry, like for example Gary.
Yeah.
How would you?
Well, I wasn't that good on that one, so I would, from 1 to 10.
Yeah, I don't.
What would you say?
I would say, well, the thing is, let's dive a deeper into that. Spending time to learn from other people in our industries that are doing it. You know, it's the concept of.
I watched David Hay. He talks about cryptocurrency trading.
Okay. And do you execute on what he talks about?
Yeah.
Okay, that's above average. I'm gonna give you a 7 on that. Okay, how much money have you spent on becoming a mental Robin Hood in terms of seminars, books, and elevating yourself?
I've been good on that.
Yeah, you have. There's a 10 on that. So altogether, you have a 10, 8, 7, and 10. So that's 20, 35.
35.
So,
that's not bad.
Yeah.
Out of 40?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So that's not bad. There's a quote that I really like, which is that poor people, or people that have less money, should take rich people or wealthier people to lunch or dinner. It sounds very, backwards, because you have less money and they have more money. They don't need your money for lunch or dinner. It's the fact that you have so much to gain from them.
Yeah.
And so I really like that.
And don't be greedy. Pay for the dinner.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, don't wait for them to
Yeah, don't split the bill.
Oh wow, that's a bad sign right there. No. Yeah, you may feel like this person has so much money. What's $100 of them paying the bill for? We may be consciously humble. We may look at ourselves like, hey, I'm not being audacious. I'm not posting on Facebook about how much I made. I'm not flexing out there. But true humility is realizing that we need to humble ourselves in front of higher knowledge, in front of people that have done greater than us, and go relentlessly to seek their knowledge. And Tai has talked about him traveling to, I forget what part of the world, on like the rest of the money he had left at a certain time in his life, to go seek knowledge from someone greater than himself. So in terms of, if you are in touch with someone that can possibly provide some growth or guidance in your life, and you can go visit them or you can go see them, you shouldn't be quiet about that. You shouldn't just ask once and they were busy or they didn't return my phone call, let me not bug them.
Yeah, be consistent.
Exactly. The and what Tai is talking about, the ethical thing to do when it comes to inner humility, if you want to be truly humble, is be relentless in getting to that person and telling them that, hey, I'm on a quest to better myself, and I must admit I do not have the knowledge that you have, and I'm coming to you seeking guidance and seeking knowledge, and really put yourself in that position to. And there was a Chinese proverb that said that valleys put themselves below mountains to catch their water. So how can you catch the wisdom of people above you if you keep putting yourself above or at their level? You need to metaphorically bow in the presence of greatness and allow that knowledge to seep into your life. So that's everything that we've gathered from the third step of Tai Lopez's 67 steps. Wonderful principles, wonderful takeaways, completely new perspective on the word humility. I have definitely taken away a lot from this. And
same here. This was my favorite lesson actually out of
all three. And Sam Walton, I mean, that character has now a very, very respectable position in my mind. One that I will keep referencing when situations come up where I need to draw on my inner humility to go and seek knowledge, to hunt that knowledge down and realize what Sam Walton did, and use that as courage. Like, if that person as a billionaire status could be on the floors in Brazil, in a country where he wasn't really too familiar with the surroundings, and ended up in jail for a night, why can I not summon up the courage to go ask that person about this or that I do not understand?
Yeah.
So draw on that knowledge. Ask yourself, what is your inner humility? Take the inner humility test and really exercise this muscle of inner humility, and see where that takes you. I know that I will be tapping into that. I will seek that knowledge and summon up that courage to take the steps to find the people that know the answer, and be that valley so I can collect their wisdom.
Thank you for staying tuned.
And we'll catch you on step 4 of the 67 steps.
Peace.
Take care.